Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and this is all about my life after gastric bypass surgery. And this video is my 10-month post-op update. If you're a returning subscriber, thanks so much for stopping by and hanging on for yet another monthly update. And if you are not yet a subscriber, please consider subscribing and letting me know what you think about the content here, letting me know if you like it and want to see more. That way I can get out useful and helpful information for all of you who are either potentially interested in going through this process or you're already going through it yourself. I'm going to start out on the stats right away on this one. So like usual, I'm going to pop them up right here. On August 31st, I weighed in at 230.6 pounds. And on September 28th, I weighed in at 222.8 pounds. So that was a 7.8 pound loss for the month of September. And that puts me at 151.2 pounds lost total since I started this process on October 6th of last year. So you are watching this most likely on October 5th, which means that tomorrow is my 1 year mark from when I started the pre-op process. I started pre-op on October 6th of 2020, and then I had surgery on December 1st of that year. So I am rapidly approaching my surgiversary, which is just crazy to me. I can't believe that it's been a full year since I've started this whole process and buckled down and did the pre-op diet. I always had this kind of arbitrary goal that I would lose 150 pounds by October 6th, the 1 year mark. And I'm there. I'm at 151.2 lost total. So by tomorrow, I will probably be more than 151.2 pounds lost. So I've exceeded by just a little bit that arbitrary goal. I had no idea what to expect, but I thought maybe it would be possible based off of what I was seeing every month. So at this point, I'm wondering, is it possible to be under 200 pounds by the end of the year? I mean, the answer is yes, it's possible. But as you may have noticed, if this is not your first monthly update of mine that you're watching, this was yet another month that has slowed down a little bit. I was averaging about 11 or 12 pounds lost a month. But every once in a while, I'll get like a 6 or 7 pound loss. And so with 7.8 pounds lost this month, it is starting to slow down. As I approach that 1 year mark, it will continue to slow down. They say 12 to 18 months is really the pinnacle of when you're going to see the most change, the most loss. And at that point, after 18 months, you've really reached probably the maximum benefit from the surgery itself, and everything else is on you. It does not mean that after 18 months you stop losing, but you kind of have to pick up the slack and do a little bit of that work on your own, whereas you really don't have to try that hard for the weight to fall off in the very beginning. That's at least what I've read, and that's been my experience so far. Although this month was not huge in terms of actual weight loss, I feel like this month was really, really big in non-scale victories and just accomplishments and how I feel. And one of the really big things that happened this month is that I got on a plane for the first time since surgery. It's really hard for your mind to catch up with what's going on with your body. You'll hear a lot of people say that the body dysmorphia is really, it's real and it can be intense. What you see is not really sometimes accurate. What you feel sometimes is not really accurate. And so sometimes it's really, really hard for us to see and notice those changes going on with us until something big comes along and makes us realize that. I know that I've lost a lot of weight and that flying would be different, but it was a world I've literally never experienced in my adult life. I got on the plane. I had tons and tons of room. I was able to literally cross my legs while I was waiting on the tarmac. I was able to cinch my seatbelt. There were things that I've never experienced as an adult that made flying so much easier. And it was so noticeable, so noticeable. One thing I did notice though is that I was a little bit more uncomfortable flying just because my butt hurt. Sitting for longer periods of time hurts more. I don't have as much padding on my behind as I used to. And so I noticed that it was a little bit achy and more uncomfortable just sitting on the plane. But the whole experience overall was just incredible. It was just absolutely incredible to see for a fact, this is how much weight you've lost. The last time you flew, you couldn't buckle the seatbelt, and now you're actually cinching it. There's extra seatbelt there. I mean, that is a huge way to measure something. This was my first trip since surgery. I've mentioned before on my channel that early 2020, my father passed away. And so I have been trying to deal with the estate and things over time. And one of those things is that there's property up in Alaska where I grew up and where he lived. And so we needed to go up there and check on the property and make sure before winter comes that everything's good, because nobody's had a chance with him being sick before he died, and with COVID, nobody's had a chance for years to go up to the property. We were expecting the worst. Who knows? A tree could have fallen on the cabin that we have. It could have been a disaster, but it needed to get done. I was really a little bit uncomfortable with flying, with everything going on with COVID, and it just didn't seem like something I would do by choice, but this was pretty much the last chance that we had to get up there before it snowed. And actually, while we were on the trip, right, like a couple of days after we left the property, it actually snowed up there. So it was literally the last chance we had this month. So this trip was kind of business. We had a few things to take care of in Alaska for the estate and dealing with the property. But I was also hoping to kind of use it as a chance to maybe get a bit of a break, because if you're anything like me, I haven't been able to get out or do anything fun or travel or do pretty much anything. And this was the first time that I've traveled since surgery. And so I wanted to see what that was like. And I'm actually going to put out a video next week that kind of details a little bit more about what traveling after surgery was like. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But what I will say is it was very eye-opening and put quite a lot of things into perspective for me that I think was very helpful and something I kind of needed about now. I was worried that going an entire week without having the ability to weigh out my food and be very careful about what I was eating and cooking my own food was going to set me back. And not just set me back, I was seriously worried that I was going to overdo it just enough that when I got back home and started back into my routine, I was suddenly not going to be satisfied with 6 ounces of food, and just worried that suddenly going an entire week was just going to throw off a bunch of progress. What I did notice, though, was that I was able to come back and get back into my routine, and it was easy. In fact, 6 ounces of food was still extremely filling for me. It was not something that I had blown. It didn't ruin my perspective on things. It was extremely easy for me to get back into my routine. And not only was it easy to get back, I was dying to get back to my routine. One of the things I noticed was that eating out multiple meals a day was just too much on my stomach. It was not the same as pre-surgery. It absolutely wasn't. Prior to surgery, I would use traveling as an excuse to eat food. It was an ability where you could just go and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner at all sorts of restaurants if you wanted to, and you could indulge in food that you don't normally have around your house, or just a whole bunch of restaurant food and just feel like, oh, I'm on vacation, it's not a big deal. But that's not how I felt this time. In fact, even though I was eating tiny portions and we were careful about the types of food that we got, I noticed about halfway through the trip that my stomach needed a break. I absolutely needed a break. And for a couple lunches, I just stuck with some of the snacks that we purchased. We had grapes and trail mix and mini Baby Bell cheeses and things that we had purchased for snacks that I just kind of gravitated towards as my lunch for a couple of days to give myself a rest. I needed that break because what I notice is I tend to eat lunch meat and cheeses and pickles and trail mix, and I graze on that kind of stuff at home for lunches during the day or for snacks. And I really realized that I don't eat 3 large meals a day anymore, like at all. I have a very light breakfast and a very light lunch, and then I usually will have a normal dinner. This has reinforced me to eat simple and eat healthy, because if I listen to my body and I'm mindful about these things, that's what makes me feel the best. There was one day on the trip where I ate leftovers for lunch and I really didn't feel good. I don't know if it was a dumping episode as much as I needed to lay off. My stomach had had enough and I just wasn't having any of it. On the drive home from the airport at the end of the trip, all I could think about was how I was going to go home and eat broccoli. Like, I literally wanted nothing but broccoli with those little Laughing Cow cheese wedges. That's one of my favorite combinations ever. I will eat a bite of the cheese with a bite of broccoli, and it's so satisfying and puts me in a happy place. And that's all I could think about on the drive home because I just needed a reset. I needed simple food. Do you want to come up here? You want to come up? Want to say hi? I got a little one. I got a little one. Even with all of these small portions and not weighing out the food and everything, I felt so much more confident coming home knowing that that's the way that I operate best. Making sure that I'm weighing out my food and making sure that I'm being mindful about those portions and mindful about the types of food that I'm eating. It really makes a difference in how I feel and how fueled I feel and ready for the day. Since I've been back, I've really also noticed that food is no longer an important staple in my life. And I've been teetering on the edge of this feeling for a while, but now I officially think that I finally got there mentally and a switch flipped in my head, so to speak. Food is just not that important anymore. I would worry so much about what I was going to eat and what flavor I wanted and what type of food we were going to get. And a lot of times it was ordering and being able to have all of the things that my taste buds wanted and eat as much of it as I physically could. And now it is so much further from that. I'll spend a bunch of time worrying about what I'm going to eat and then fill up after a few bites of it. So I got to the point where I was like, why does it matter what I'm eating? That's not to say that taste and cravings don't come into play here, because they certainly do. And there are times I'm like, oh, I don't feel like that, so I'm going to eat something else. But for the most part, I don't have the same kind of emphasis and importance on what I'm eating as I used to. It's really just a matter of curbing that hunger, eating something that is not going to disagree with my stomach, eating something like meats and cheeses and pickles, like I said, trail mix, those types of things, just enough to make me not hungry anymore. And then I move on. And although that might sound kind of sad, especially if you consider yourself a foodie and you're someone like me who really enjoyed eating food, in a lot of ways it's been very freeing because there's so much less of my brain space and so much less of my time consumed with what I'm going to eat and why. It is hard to get used to, and there's still times when my brain wants to slip back into that and I overthink what I'm going to eat. For the most part, I always end up landing on the same answer, which is it doesn't matter. Just go have a few bites of leftovers and move on with the night. Look at his tail. She's so attention hungry right now. And then I did want to do a quick update about my back pain. I did have somebody ask for an update on that, and I did say that I was going to update after a little bit more time and experimenting has happened. While I was on this trip, one of the hotel rooms that we were in had a memory foam mattress, and I was really worried that I was going to sleep awful that night because my past experience has been that I have always hated memory foam mattresses. In fact, I've always needed like a pretty firm hotel room bed, or I would just have a terrible time sleeping. Since I have been paying attention to my back pain and kind of dealing with that side of things, I have noticed that a big part of that pain is stemming from when I sleep. And so I have been curious if it really has to do with the mattress, if it's just as simple as changing my mattress. I slept like a baby on that memory foam mattress on my trip, and I was just like, oh my gosh, is this the answer? Supporting my hips with a softer, cushier material rather than laying on a firm mattress. Losing weight really quickly has messed with my body. My body doesn't know how to hold itself the same way. Everything is sort of messed up and achy because there's so much less weight and pressure on different points in my body, and I've really noticed it in my hips, especially when sleeping. If I sleep on my side, it feels like my hips are just out of whack, even if I put a pillow between my legs. So I came home and I bought a memory foam mattress pad, and I have noticed significantly less pain while I'm sleeping. It has not gone entirely, but it is certainly better. So I think changing the whole mattress, there's probably some merit to that. And I'm probably going to have to rethink and reestablish what is comfortable for my body now that I've lost so much weight, which is something that I hadn't considered, but makes total sense if you think about it. I mean, everything needs different support. I don't have the same body mass and composition. When I'm laying down, things don't line up the same way they did when I had so much weight on my body. The other part of it, though, is that I really can control it with diet to some extent. And what I noticed after experimenting a little bit further after that video is that I do get flare-ups and quite a lot more pain when I'm eating sugar. The more sugar that I eat, real sugar, the worse that inflammation gets. And there are a lot of things out there that do link inflammation and pain with overconsumption of sugar. I had noticed that I was grabbing little bites here and there of real sugar things, and by the end of the day, those things were really adding up to being quite a lot more sugar than I was used to prior. So I've been focusing on trying to do a lot more sugar-free items, trying to put less emphasis on having something sweet after dinner. That is something that comes and goes in my life where I feel like I need dessert all the time. It really went away right after surgery, but it started to slowly come back. So I'm trying to just make sure that I put less emphasis on those types of things and overall eat less sugar. If I'm going to have something sweet, try to do something either natural sugar or sugar-free, and stick to very small portions of things because that always worked for me in the past. I just need to be mindful about those things. And since I've made those changes, I have noticed quite a bit less pain in general when I wake up in the morning. I'm not hobbling around like an old lady, so that I consider that a win. As usual, I'm going to end this video with a couple non-scale victories that I experienced this month. I already talked about quite a lot of things that happened, but one of them was experiencing for the first time, and this is a big one if you have been struggling to lose weight. The hotel towel wrapped all the way around me. I was able to wrap it around myself and walk around with it fully closed, which is the first time ever probably for me. So that was super exciting. Seems like a silly thing, but it is such a big milestone for so many people when you finally get to that point, and I couldn't believe that I'm already there. I really truly feel bigger than that, and that's that body dysmorphia that kind of comes in a little bit. Sometimes I get a glimpse of myself and realize that I'm a lot smaller than my mind really thinks that I am sometimes. And so when I was able to do that, I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I made it there already, less than a year after surgery, and I've made it to that point. Like, that's crazy. Another silly one is that I'm able to keep my legs shaved a lot easier. I don't think I really realized how difficult it was for me to shave my legs in the past. I mean, I knew it was an ordeal, but the fact that it is such a quick and simple thing for me to do now and just decide, oh, I'm going to shave my legs really quick is just, it's insane. Like, it is insane how difficult that was for me before. I would have to set aside, time for like a 30 or 40-minute shower, knowing that I would have plenty of time to be able to, prop my leg up if needed, or bend over and give myself breaks. And it was just way more difficult than it should be. Like, it should not be that difficult. And it's something that I can do really easily now that I don't even really have to think about. And that leads to the next non-scale victory, which is that my confidence has increased. Just the ability to keep my legs shaved and, go out in a skirt or a dress or some shorts and not like think about it. It just adds to the confidence that I can keep myself upkept in the way that I want to, and it's not like really difficult for me. I didn't really process how difficult that was in the past. And now I have a lot more confidence. I feel so much more confident going out and being out in public and being around people. My thoughts are not haunted by what people might be thinking about me, or whether or not I'm embarrassing myself, or if I look really awful or anything like that. I don't always put on makeup when I go out. I don't always overly obsess over certain things. I just generally feel way more comfortable in my skin. And that comes out in my relationship as well. I'm a lot more confident with my boyfriend. I feel just a lot more confident and self-assured in a lot of areas that has made quite a big difference in my life. And where I didn't think I really had too much of a lack of self-confidence, I am realizing that it certainly has gotten better than what it was, which means there's always room for improvement. And overall, it's just adding a lot of positivity to my life. So that's all I have for you, I think, for this month's update. I'll be coming out next week with a little bit more details about what it was like traveling 10 months post-op from surgery, and some of the more details about what I experienced, what I learned, and things that were easier and some things that were more difficult. So keep an eye out for that. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and always make sure that you're looking at the big picture. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, there's kitty hair all over me. You gonna say hi to everybody? Say hello. This is what I have to deal with almost every time I film.